Hi guys, I'm Miss K. I'm an English teacher by day, and by night I read a heck of a lot of books, so I decided to start a YouTube channel where I do book reviews. If you like my content, go ahead and hit subscribe down below, like the video, leave a comment down below if you have something to say, and make sure you hit the notification bell to make sure you're notified each time I drop a video. So today's video, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go through a very popular one that's been blowing up on TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, you name it. It is the one and only Haunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton. Let's get into it. But first, there are 3 things you need to know that make a really good piece of literature. There are 3 things we have to remind ourselves in the world of books. 1 is character. If you do not have adequate character development and a character profile from beginning to end of the book, then your characters will be flat, one note, and they will not act like real people. 2 is world building. This is the universe that your characters live in. And the 3rd one can overshadow both of the others if not done correctly. That is style, word choice, and vocabulary. If you don't have the ability to actually say what you want to say, it doesn't matter how good of an idea it is. Doesn't matter how complex character you have. It doesn't matter if the world is the best that's ever been in existence. If you can't say what you want to say, then it doesn't matter. Now let's get into today's book, Haunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton. This is the kind of book that you either really like it or you really don't like it. This is a dark, dark, dark book. So dark that, in fact, if you look on the front page, there's a trigger warning. There's an important note here that lists several triggers that occur throughout the book, including, but not limited to, non-consensual sex, drugs, violence and abuse, child sacrifice, satanic rituals, and quite a bit more, for being honest. This is a dark book. If you can stomach those sorts of things, it's probably an okay read for you. If that's not your cup of tea, maybe pass on this one. If you are under the age of 21, I would also recommend that you pass on this one. I had a tough time reading this. This book, ladies and gentlemen, is the only book that has taken me 8 days to read. And if you've watched any of my other videos before, I typically plow through a book of this magnitude in roughly 3 days. This took me 8 days. I had to continually put it down, leave for an hour, pick it back up again. I also could not read this at night. It was very hard to get through at night. It is that dark and that disturbing. If you can stomach the darkness, by all means, Haunting Adeline might be a book for you. However, this was not my cup of tea. Our female lead is Adeline. She is a successful writer, lives in Seattle, and she likes things that are dark and creepy, which I do too. So she and I would get along pretty well. She even moves into her grandmother's old mansion, has it remodeled, and even lives and kind of communicates with the ghosts and spirits that still haunt the place. Okay. She comes across an old diary from her great-grandma. Her name was Gigi. And she finds out that Gigi was brutally murdered and her murder went unsolved. Now, as her story unfolds, she does her best to solve the case of Gigi's murder. And in so doing, she attracts the attention of a certain hacker-turned-vigilante mercenary, Zade Meadows. Now, Zade is not your average vigilante. He specialized in computers and then built up his own empire to combat, namely, child trafficking. And while we can applaud him for that, some of the scenarios that H.D. Carlton puts him in describes in vivid detail some of the horrific things that happen to children in child trafficking rings all around the world. That's rather disturbing. I had to put the book down at that point and go hug my kids because I have 2 little kids of my own. I couldn't stomach it. I had to skip that chapter and kind of move on to the next space where we see Zade Meadows approaching Adeline, and ultimately he becomes obsessed. Now, Adeline realizes that her great-grandma Gigi had a stalker way back when in 1930, But Adeline now has a stalker as well. Now, I would not call this a dark romance type of stalking. This is an unhealthy obsession. So much so that if someone looks at Adeline the wrong way, Zade Meadows cuts him into pieces and then leaves the pieces on Adeline's doorstep for her to find. That's not something that I would necessarily approve. Now, some people like the dark, really dark, obsessive type of male character. I'm not that way. So that was a bit of a turnoff for me. There's also the fact that he sets up surveillance in absolutely every single part of her house. There's at least a couple dozen cameras all over her house, including the bathrooms. And as their interactions become more frequent, Adeline realizes that she doesn't like him. She flat out tells him to leave. He does not. In fact, in the next chapter, there's sort of a non-consensual sex scene with a gun involved. And that was not okay for me. I skipped that chapter too. Overall, as the story continues on, we see Zade's vigilante group starting to look into areas of the government where a sort of satanic cult has emerged that uses children in the form of ritual sacrifice, films the videos, and then posts them online. Now, this is again disturbing, and once again I had to put the book down and go hide for a little bit. However, this is really the part where H.D. Carlton probably could have wrapped up the book as she's wrapping up Gigi's murder. Ultimately, Adeline solves Gigi's murder and then proceeds to get herself kidnapped by these government officials. Zade goes in undercover, tries to figure out what's going on with these satanic rituals, and in so doing gets himself captured as well. I think H.D. Carlton could have avoided that and cut it off at the ritual sacrifice, turned Zade into an actual hero, and maybe done something with Adeline and Zade's relationship. There's no plot or emotional development whatsoever in this. In fact, at the end, I wouldn't say that Adeline and Zade are in love with each other. I would say that they're just kind of friends with benefits, using each other for sex and then moving on with their lives. I don't see any sort of character or emotional growth in here. The writing in and of itself is not bad writing, but it is incredibly basic. We talked in our 3 necessities for any good piece of literature that the writing has to be exceptional in order to make a story exceptional, in order to make characters come to life, in order to make the world believable. The writing in here is okay. It's basic. I think if H.D. Carlton had taken time to perhaps vary sentence structure, vocabulary, dig a little deeper emotionally for these characters, it might have been a better story, and I would be more excited to read the second book in this duet, Hunting Adeline. However, as it stands right now, I'm giving Haunting Adeline, book 1 in the duology, a 6 out of 10. It's not that it was a bad story, but it was entirely too dark for me, and I will not be reading the second book in the duet, Hunting Adeline. Some people really love H.D. Carlton, and they love her writing. For me, it's not my cup of tea. So let me know what you thought in the comments below. I give it a 6 out of 10. What would you rate Haunting Adeline? If you have any books that you would like for me to read, please go ahead and mention them in the comments. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, happy reading.